Hey everyone, I'm Mike Masco, Wednesday Weather Blog. Lots to talk about, of course, the ice storm. We'll recap that, show you some pretty impressive radar of the ice falling a little after midnight last night, and accumulations ranging between about a quarter of an inch here in Towson to around an inch of ice. I mean, that's impressive stuff, with most areas seeing around 0.4 to about a half of an inch of ice. So 0.4 to a half of an inch of ice it really is impressive in Maryland. Given what the setup was, with the cold air still kind of in play, we had a fresh snowpack, and then warm air running into the cold air. Really a classic ice storm setup, and I think it was pretty well advertised by our station, and most stations did a pretty good job on this. Now, the focus is what's going to go down for the weekend. You're going to see a lot of people now writing this storm off. You know, it's kind of funny. The social media went from 40 inches of snow predicted by weather enthusiasts to now storm's not going to happen to storm is going to happen. It's probably just not going to be a major East Coast storm. But remember, the theme all year hasn't been an epic snowstorm. It has been these little systems that are been producing 4 to 6 inches and localized 6-inch plus amounts over the cold areas of northern Maryland and central Pennsylvania and northwestern New Jersey. So let's keep that theme going and keep that in mind as we try to forecast for this weekend event. So let's take a look at Maryland's most powerful. I want to show you the ice from last night, which was very impressive. And you will see, watch how everything's moving out right now, but watch how everything moves in a little after midnight, and you got into some really good heavy rain that was freezing on contact just outside the Northern Parkway, right in this zone. We've kind of headlined, and we headlined for at least 36 hours to you that north and west of 95, right in this quarter, would see the best chance of significant ice. In Manchester, reporting around 0.5, parts of Carroll counties, Taneytown 0.6, northwestern Baltimore County, just outside 83, seeing around 0.7 inches of ice accretion. And that's why we do have, or at times, had close to 90,000 people without power here in the Baltimore area per BGE, and they're still working to restore power at this hour. North side of the system, where there was cold air, we saw snows around 6 to 12 inches and some localized about foot amounts over the Berkshires. So you can see that along the Mass Pike. I-84 closed down for a good period of time just outside of Hartford. So a pretty good storm and a pretty impressive storm system that, at least the look on our radar and satellite presentation, you can see it over Indianapolis. There's all the mild air running up on the east side of it, and then, of course, pulling in some cold air on the north and west side of the system. So basically, it was a far-reaching storm. Indianapolis to Buffalo to Springfield, Massachusetts, up towards Portland. You're going to get into some snows as we go into tonight, and then the cold air is going to come marching in. So while it's 33 here in Baltimore as we talk at 12:30, 60s right now over the Carolinas, but there's the cold air just outside of Chicago, where it's 1 below right now in Fargo. You go down towards Denver, it's 7 degrees below zero, and that's the cold air that's going to slowly filter in as we go into the next several days. So we're not seeing any kind of warm-ups in the near future. In fact, we'll be below average with temperatures that'll be into the low 30s at day and low 20s at night here in Maryland. Winter storm warnings will continue. Pennsylvania up towards New England. You look out towards the west, see the blue coloring in here. This is wind chill advisory, so that's just advising that wind chills are going to be falling once again 20 to 30 degrees below zero. Now, the question is, what's going to go down for this weekend? I want to show you the new GFS model, and this is why everybody's screaming that there's not going to be a storm, because we have to phase two parts of the jet stream, the northern part and the southern part, together to allow for a big storm to evolve. Per the GFS, it's showing a pretty good gap between the two pockets of energy. It's probably several hundred miles, 500 miles in between, and that's going to allow for the southern piece of energy to eject out, and eventually the northern piece is going to dive in and maybe produce some light snows for Saturday. In fact, take a look. This is the GFS. Again, we're looking at around 500 millibars at our 500 millibar maps, so several thousand feet up in the atmosphere. And this shows, again, by Saturday, one piece of energy out over the open waters of the Atlantic. Here's a second piece of energy diving out of the Great Lakes, and that's more of like a clipper type of situation that you'd see bringing in the cold air across the east. And yes, it even will bring in some snow showers. But again, this is a far cry from where we were or what we were seeing only around 24 hours ago. So that's why I have to say, you have to really kind of just watch the models, hang out. Don't freak out every single model run, because you may see something different. We may be talking later tonight that all the models are switching back to a big event, or maybe there's a middle ground somewhere in between these extremes of the out to sea track and the close-in track, and the middle ground might be still a 4 to 6 inch snowfall in parts of Maryland and Delaware and New Jersey this go around. So if you take a look and you put it all together, here's the surface observation. Brings the storm offshore. So not talking about a system, a big system, but we still have some clipper precipitation coming down, and that would produce some light snow. So, you know, it doesn't look like we're walking out of this weekend with absolutely nothing. We look at the counterpart, the European, and we'll show again 2 pieces of energy separated. We need this to come together to produce a big storm. But notice a little bit of a subtle difference. You have 2 pieces of energy that are more closer together versus further apart, and that leaves on the table the potential of this storm to have a late development, and that would still bring precipitation in the form of snow. So if you look at the surface map, notice that storm, yes, it's one storm system, but it's not too far off. In fact, it's pretty close to the Delmarva, and it's a similar look to that one system that produced a couple weeks ago that produced snows in Ocean City, in Chestertown, in Easton, up towards Dover and southeast Jersey. So, you know, that idea is being put on the table as well. Maybe this is a true beach snowstorm again this weekend, where the further south and east you go from the Bay Bridge, the better shot of seeing snow. And if you look at the European snow output, it's certainly headlining that potential. In fact, again, this model, the European, showing a swath of some pretty good snows over the central and southern Delmarva down towards Norfolk, Cape May Courthouse up towards Atlantic City, south of the Atlantic City Expressway. Could be several inches of snow. And then over the I-95 cities, maybe a little bit of a sugar coating and dusting of snow. So that's why we cannot write this weekend storm off. I want to see at least a couple more model runs and see if we can find a trend somewhere. We'll have a new European that comes out this afternoon. That's going to be a model I'm going to watch. If there's more of a trend more north and west, then something's up with the GFS, and the Euro's trying to correct itself. So I think today is going to probably tell a lot, or answer a lot of questions that I have, and I think the Friday runs, or at least the Thursday runs of the GFS and Euro and Canadian, which we have to give credit to, will probably nail this idea down for you guys, and at least for me, to be able to kind of say, hey, this is probably not going to happen this go around. Then we look at next week, believe it or not, and next week it looks just as active as this week, where a little bit of a different solution. The ridge is now trying to reform back over the west coast. In turn, we're starting to see more of a trough digging in over the east. And look what the GFS and European are both kind of headlining. Here comes the polar vortex down once again. Or I should say, let me headline that or highlight that. A chunk of the chunk of the polar vortex coming down. And then you're going to have some more southern energy trying to consolidate itself over the Gulf Coast states and come up towards the north and east. Could next week bring a big storm? I don't know. Can't answer that question yet. But the idea is certainly that winter is nowhere close to being over. I like the idea of a late February into March swing back towards quick spring by March 1st and 2nd. But right now, winter is going to be stuck for really this month. I think we're going to have a real pretty active pattern that's expected to evolve. All right, we'll talk more again tonight on ABC News at 5 and 6 o'clock. Let's watch the models. Of course, I'll post as I see fit. If the European comes in screaming the idea of a more northwestern trend, you're probably going to hear it from me first. All right, have a great afternoon. Thanks for logging on.